Hello and welcome to the Medin family. We are now into episode 3 of our podcast. I'm pretty excited about this. But my name is Shah Medin. I come from a large family. And as you can see, there are a few of us that aren't here today because we're going to be talking about something that's kind of more centered around this aspect of the family, our band, Breakthrough. But before we get going in that, I want to give a word from our sponsor. Our sponsor for episode 3 is the Med City Moonshots. Their mission is to show the nation that individuals with all abilities are more than just glorified spectators, to teach society that they are young adults capable of functioning without any limits. So if you'd be interested in learning more about this great organization, they have a meet and greet in Rochester on May 21st at noon at the Honkers, Mayo Field. There we go. And then they will have an event that's a celebrity game on July 16th, as well as Moonshots versus the Med City Honkers on July 30th. So if you're interested at all in baseball and would like to learn more about a great organization, check out the Med City Moonshots. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about our family band, Breakthrough. We had talked about that quite a bit in our last episode, but we wanted to get a little bit more into the origin story. This time, how the band began, how that's played into the family and who we are today. And so we wanted to make sure that our mom and dad were here for this episode because they're a big part of how we started. And so if you wouldn't mind, mom and dad, would you tell us a little bit kind of how the vision for the family band began?
Well, we knew a family who were worship leaders who came to a conference that our church was putting on, and they needed a place to stay, and so we hosted them here at the house. And they were just really fun. The kids were fun to be around. They all got along really well. They were very, very talented, and they were worshipers. They had solid relationships with the Lord. They were respectful to their parents. They were really respectful to us as their hosts. And I was just so impressed with their family. So I just started kind of picking their brains. How did you get started with this? What kind of things did you do? And talk to the parents a bit to find out how to encourage your kids toward worship. Learned as much as I could. And talk to your dad about everything that I learned.
I think even predating that, we'd already had discussions about having a family band someday with all the musical talent of my mom, having her bachelor's of music, and I had played guitar and sang a lot growing up. That we might want to consider doing that. And the Brimers, I think, is the family that you were talking about. When they came, it was just kind of the thing that spurred it on, and then we got a pool of money together and went out and bought all the instruments that we thought it would take to do a band, and we thought that it would be great to buy real instruments, the kinds that the kids would see if they were watching a show. Better the instruments, usually the better the sound, the easier to play. And we just came home one day with the bass and the guitar and the drums and the keyboards and laid them out and said, everyone pick your instrument.
I actually kind of remember that day. I think oh, yeah, Catherine?
I was just going to say, I remember driving home we all had a Suburban that I think we talked about in one of the other episodes.
Oh, the reason why there aren't more kids, that
The
Suburban?
reason, we just barely fit in that Suburban, yet we had a keyboard in the back and guitars across our laps and speakers in between the seats and stuff.
I remember that day a little bit differently. I recall that most of us were downstairs, PJ and Drew. I think you might remember it similar. Mom and Dad yelled down the stairs, "Kids, get up here." And I think all of us were afraid that we were in trouble for something that we didn't quite know that we had done. And we got upstairs to find that our parents, of all people, were encouraging us to make a band and start playing music. But I don't think everyone quite started out on the instruments that we now play today. PJ, what did you start with?
I started out on the drums.
And sometimes, if you look closely, or not closely, if you squint a little bit, he's still on the drums. He and Sean look very similar. And he often gets comments about what a great job he did today at church.
That's true. Drew, you did start on the instrument that you still play, didn't you?
Well, sort of. So, how I recall, which it was a while ago, um, was that we all went into mom and dad's room one at a time, and dad had like several instruments set up. I think the drums were in there, I remember. And like, I think we'd taken some basic piano lessons, so they knew, who could play piano and whatnot. And then there was like the guitar. And I remember starting on dad's Ovation, the acoustic, but I remember all of us kind of wanted to do drums. And so everybody was vying for the drummer position. And I can remember, I think it was an NSYNC song that we were just kind of like auditioning on, and my drum audition did not go well from what I recall. And so then dad took me aside and said, you know what, you're going to play bass. And I was like, what's the bass? And he was like, I'll show you. And so he pulled up a song, and it started with this super cool guitar part. And he was like, do you hear it? And I was like, oh, is it that thing? And he's like, no, listen closer. And it was the thing that was going, do, 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 do. And from that moment on, I played bass.
I don't think I was actually vying for the drums. I believed I wanted to be the guitarist because I was like, the guitarist gets all the girls. And I was never quite a ladies' man. I thought I was, but I wasn't. So I remember we had a red American-made Fender Stratocaster that I just loved. And so I took that and I tried so hard to learn how to play that thing, but for the life of me could not figure it out. And then just one day, I don't know how this started, but just one day all of a sudden I was put behind drums and told to start learning that. Pete, do you...
Well, I
remember how that happened. Fred Herzog's church moved into our house, and they needed a worship team, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to lead worship from the drums. I need to play the keyboard, and so I wrote Sean into playing drums. And I remember that because he was not a fan of that idea at all, and I kind of had to argue with him a little bit to get him to take that position. And that it's funny to me now, because I remember after Sean got into drums, he really started to love it. And I think at one point in time, his goal was to become the best metal drummer in the world. And it was just kind of funny to see that switch over from absolutely hating that idea to loving what he does.
I do love what I do now. But I have been trying to venture out a little bit more into guitar recently to kind of get out of the cage where everyone's like, oh, PJ, good job. It's like, no, I'm Sean. You would know that if you saw me more. People all the time at church are like, oh, go back to the cage where you belong. It's like, oh, okay.
You do a great
I'm pretty
job
good in there.
I think the part that people always forget is that PJ learned them all. And I think Drew's learned quite a few too, but he'll have to step up every once and play keyboards. And people are always going, hey, just a second, I thought you're the guitar player and sometimes the drum player, but you play keyboards too. And that was kind of how we started too, that we kind of had to switch out on instruments. Because I remember the first keyboard player that we had on our first concert was Margaret Wood.
Thank you, Margaret Wood.
And then the girls started stepping in and learning all the keyboards too, and then they kind of took over that main keyboard role.
Well, Dad, I think you used to play your Ovation for us too. I think one of the first kind of concerts we had was
Prayer breakfast.
Yes, prayer breakfast in Nurstrand, and Dad was on the Ovation, Drew was on the bass.
Sean was
PJ
the lead
on-
singer.
Yep, back before puberty hit, and it hit hard. And Catherine was singing with me, and Margaret, of course, was on the keyboard. And I remember Dad made you and me hold hands because it made us more united.
Well, I figured if that's what St. Olaf the St. Olaf choir does, it could work for you two.
Yeah, his hands are sweaty.
I was nervous. It's my first time singing. And up to that point, I think all I'd really practiced was the Bee Gees, because I used to be able to actually hit that range of what those guys were doing. But I was wearing khakis, some very nerdy looking pair of sneakers, and a white and green stripe polo with a very bad haircut. And what was the first song we played?
My Redeemer Lives by Nicole C. Mullen.
Lives by Nicole C. Mullen.
I'll listen to that.
Guys, I think we should go back and redo that one. Maybe we should
No, now
revisit
that-
all of our old music days.
Now that Nicole C.
boy.
Mullen kind of follows us through Deborah's Instagram, because Nicole C. Mullen follows Deborah on Instagram, we can't because she'd see it. She'd be like,
I'll
let me
send
teach you a
the-
thing or two.
I'll send the link to Max.
Catherine, you sang it for her. I think we had that on a recording when you were at the church and you sang the song for her, and then she joined you.
Oh, I love to see it. Yeah, I think I know why she joined me. She could not hit those notes.
I think I just ran into that recording like 2 months ago when I was going through the
Oh my goodness.
I want to see it.
Years and years later, after we had done this, and the whole entire band had been reorganized, well, except Drew stayed on the bass. PJ moved to guitar. Catherine and Sarah both moved to piano, but then Catherine moved out of behind the keyboard. I went to drums. We had been doing this for
Years.
many, many years up to this point. Nicole C. Mullen came to our church, and it was like,
And I fangirled hard. I worked at the church at that time when she came in, and I tried to go up and talk to her and couldn't talk. And I mean, she didn't notice me. Thankfully, she was busy figuring out what she was going to do the next day. But
Catherine
Oh
just
my
quietly
goodness, I was-
saying under her breath,
can you please just say something to me?
But that was many years later. But all prior to this, after we had been playing music for a while, then I remember another time where after that point, Dad was very, very proud of us playing music. And so he'd have us sing and play at all these different family gatherings. And I remember being at some family reunion in Chicago and having to sing in front of all of our, the aunts that squeeze your cheeks and get lipstick all over you. What? There's a
Jonan.
Beach Boys song.
Dum 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 dum.
Yeah.
Come and
Come and
go.
Go With
I think
Me
or come and
by
go.
the
With me.
Beach Boys.
And Dad, I was the lead singer at that point in time, and Dad was like, "Go sing this." I was like, "No, I can't. I'm so scared. Go sing it." I was like, "I can." And I ended up.
That's what
singing
your
it in the
voice
end.
sounded like
Yeah,
back then too.
I think I nailed it.
Come into my heart.
I wish we had a recording to show all of you. I'm sure you all love it. But I think shortly after that, my voice started changing, and I was booted from the front man spot and put back into the drums. And Catherine had a non-hostile, cute takeover. She's like, "But I can sing," and then everyone's like, "Okay." And so that brought us to where we are today. But I do remember, and we probably all try so hard to forget the first song we ever wrote.
Does anybody else remember what it is? Drew?
I remember what it is.
I remember what it
I don't think it's the first song we ever wrote. I think the boys, PJ and Drew had written something already, but it was the first song we all played together.
And recorded,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
That's
don't
the first
remember.
I don't remember this at all.
It was called.
I love that.
Anybody remember the name of it? Start with an F.
Yep,
Oh,
Faithful.
sorry, I wasn't listening.
Yep.
That was the second song. That was the second song we wrote.
Right, but
The
it was
lament.
the first
I'm
song
saying
we
you guys
recorded,
wrote the
is what we
lament, right?
established there.
Yeah. Drew and PJ wrote the first song that Breakthrough ever wrote. Although I suppose we should quick cover how we got the name Breakthrough, shouldn't we?
Yes. So there's two popular stories. One
They're
of
popular?
them is there's a beautiful painting by the artist Fred Sommers, local to Northfield, Minnesota, and it hangs up in our house in Nerstrand, and it is called Breakthrough, and it's an awesome painting of the sunlight breaking through a bunch of clouds.
You said there were two
But there's
popular
a second-
stories.
There's a second option, which is right after our first concert in Nerstrand for the prayer breakfast.
I know where you're going.
I know what you're saying.
We were all riding the high of our first performance, going extremely well,
Oh, yeah.
and PJ would have been probably 14 at the time, and mom and dad were like exuberant and ecstatic, and they were like, all right, well, you kids go home, we're gonna like just hang out here for a little bit longer. And we were like, well, how are we gonna get home if you both hang out here for a little bit longer? And then dad handed PJ the keys and was like, son, I think you're ready to drive. And PJ was like, all right. And it was only 4 miles away from our house or something like that.
It's
and we
like
knew how to
2
get there.
miles away
And
from
so
2
we're all
miles on the
riding-
gravel.
on a gravel road on a
We're all
straight
on the gravel
shot.
road. Yep, we're all riding. It's a great time. We're excited. I'm relieved from the now familiar and pre-show anxiety, and we're having a good time, laughing, joking around, listening to tunes. And we get home, and we got onto the driveway, the little concrete slab in front of our garage door, and PJ put it in park and stepped on the brakes, and what he really did was put it in drive and stepped on the gas and broke through the garage door. And that's the what I like to think of as the true origin of the name. We came up with the name from the painting, but that garage door incident really made it true.
It solidified the name forever.
Yeah.
Well, going back now to the story of the first song, PJ and Drew, you guys were at our friends, the Perks, who we had been involved with through the different churches that we were part of, and you guys were on their worship team for a church it was called Uptown at the time. So you guys were gone for a weekend at a conference or something. Like I don't actually know how this story how you guys got started on writing this. How did our first song, The Lament, how'd that start?
I remember that we were doing this conference, and when we were playing, like, the anointing of the Holy Spirit was really strong. And as you guys all know, like, if you come away from one of those conferences or one of those worship services, it just feels like the anointing sits on you for a while. And so I'm feeling that, and we're getting back to the Perks place, and we're hanging out in the living room, and all of a sudden, I think Drew and I were just like, I feel like we're supposed to write a song. And so we sat down at the piano, and one of us opened up the Bible and like opened up to the first set of lyrics for the song, and it just started coming together.
Which ultimately inspired the second song we wrote, right? But there was a deadline for that one, wasn't there? Faithful? I'm seeing some smiles, so the story's coming back to memory for some people. I think it was coming up on Mother's Day.
It was Father's
It was
Day.
Father's Day.
Oh, then why
Or
did we write
a
it for
surprise
Mom?
party or something.
No, it was
We wrote it for Dad.
for Dad.
Oh, so you told us to write. I thought Dad told us to write the song.
Because it sounds
Or
like
you.
something Dad would do.
No,
You guys are a band now, write music. So
I don't remember now.
then this
that was
is.
an assignment.
Go ahead, Peach.
So that was an assignment we were given. We were asked to write Dad a song, and by Father's Day or his birthday, whatever it was. And so we had like a month to write it. and I remember that it, unlike the first one where the anointing was there, this one we were kind of trudging through and doing our best to put it together, and I think things got heated as we got closer to that day. It was like a week out or something, and half the song still wasn't done. I just remember being more stressed out than I've ever been stressed in my life. Trying to write this song for Dad. I think that we just got it done by like the skin of our teeth. It was like the day before, like the morning of or something. We were just finishing it up.
Were you writing it for Mom? I
No,
wouldn't have had you
Lord,
write
it
a
was,
song for me.
It's
I
like,
feel like it
wake
was-
up, I hit the grind. You were hitting the grind.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
Mom was just like
I
floating
was a
through.
stay-at-home mom, just homeschooling 7 kids and eating bonbons with my feet up all day.
I just remember being like, yeah, Dad hits the grind. That's what I
Yeah.
was. That's what I know.
No, I think it was it like your 40th birthday, or it was? Were we doing a surprise party that I wanted them to play at?
I
I don't
honestly
think
swore that
me
it was
that
for
asked
Mother's
to get the
Day.
song.
I
don't
actually know exactly what it was this whole time, but
Oh.
I wanted to watch it unfold what you guys thought it was. And it was Dad's surprise party, and we were playing a song for him as a gift. And Mom had told us to write it.
Yep.
Well,
And
that's
at
not
one
fair, is
point
that?
in the lyrics, I think there was a word like ain't or something. One of those words that wasn't really a word. I can't remember the lyrics, but I think we had to change that because we were writing it for Dad, and Dad would not like that.
Especially in front of all of his friends.
Well, especially in front of Grandma,
Right.
Yeah, especially in front of Grandma.
or as I
Anyways.
like to call her, Grammar.
But did you love the song, Dad? I mean, you might have been biased because you're
Well,
dad.
now I'm zeroing in because I didn't ask to write this song, and
No, it was a
You don't
surprise.
ask for gifts.
yeah.
It's a gift. I ask for gifts. You don't.
Deborah's expensive.
Hey, I was thinking about the early days of the band and thinking about the show we played at Shiloh Temple.
Oh yeah,
Do you guys remember that?
I do. That was the
Yes, I do.
first time and
Yep.
only time I've
Vividly.
ever been called dope.
You were called Dope.
Yeah. One
No, I think I called you a dope a few times
Oh.
before that.
Oh, sorry.
I
But-
mean, none of us were around to witness it. Are we sure it really happened, guys?
But you can't really have a talk about breakthrough without talking about cross.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Go ahead, PJ. It sounded like you were about to say something.
No, I was just agreeing with Dad. The cross has been a real integral part of the beginning of our story. To the best of my recollection, this was back when Mom was booking our shows for us, and she was using our Sonic,
There's Sonic
uh,
Bids.
the Sonic Bids page, and found this hip hop show up in the cities at Shiloh Temple, and spoke with Cross and got us booked there.
He actually invited
And,
us. He invited us. So he reached out
What's that?
to me. I think it was because he was looking for, just something to fill out. It was a gospel show, actually. And yeah, it was an amazing experience, though. Do you remember
Oh, yeah.
back then? Was that would have been in the, what,
2000s.
early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s? And
It would've been in the
yeah,
early-
you're right.
Yeah, definitely
yeah.
not the.
There was a
Yeah,
choir. So there was a choir called the Sounds of Blackness who were really famous. And they were at that show. And you guys got to meet some of their members. And to me, that was a huge deal because it was kind of the first time that you guys were in front of, bona fide musicians, people who are already out there and had made a name for themselves. So that was really exciting, I thought.
I remember we had 7 minutes
Mm-hmm.
to play. And so we played half of the song The Lament and half of a song called Waiting, which became the title track off of our first album.
Mm-hmm.
Second album, actually. Remember,
That-
Faithful
that
got on
first
one.
That's not that first one was not an album, Sean. That would be a single and a B-side.
Oh, well, if any of you want to find it, I'm sure it's out there on the internet somewhere, and you can comment with the link to that on this video.
But please don't. No, yeah, we played that show. We played half half of one song straight into half of the other. And at that time, we didn't know as much about music as we did now. They were in completely different keys from each other. And I don't think we did any sort of like transition work or anything. We just like did a hard cut and then hard start on the next song. And weirdly, even though I am the bassist, I was playing guitar on both of those songs.
Yes.
I was playing bass.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it
I
was a good
remember when you guys started waiting, there were over 1,000 people at that show, and the roar, the applause roar that started
When Catherine started
when
singing.
Catherine started singing was amazing. I mean, I was in the back of the room just watching people's faces light up, and I think I started crying because I was just so amazed, happy.
I don't even remember how waiting goes. I'm trying to flash back to. Can I remember starting this song? Did I sound good?
Yeah, I specifically remember that, like that roar and the engagement from everyone there the instant they heard a little little girl sing the way you were singing. And I remember that song had a huge impact everywhere we went. Shiloh Temple, when we went and played at Sunshine, when we had gone and played different smaller festivals and kind of shows in and around Minnesota. So many people came up to us, and I remember we were working really hard. All us boys were working really hard to be like a hard rock band. And I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, we were ridiculous. But they, like, some people come and be like, oh man, Purify Me was so cool, or The Lament was awesome, or Fly Fish was so great. But the song that we heard about the most was Waiting. That was the main song we got response back from. And one time at Sunshine, after we had played second stage, we went back to our booth, our merch booth, to meet, greet people if they want to come talk to us after the show. And one girl walked up to us because that song had been out for a while, and somehow she had gotten her hands on our album because Cross had, after our time at Shiloh Temple, was like, I want to record you guys. And we took the time to then write the rest of an album, and he took us to a studio. He recorded us, really helped launch our name out there. So thank you, Cross, if you're listening. But this girl had gotten a hold of the album Waiting and heard us play Waiting live, had listened to Waiting all the way up to that. And she came up to Catherine and said, thank you, this album changed my life, and it kept me from committing suicide this last year. And so you may not remember the lyrics right now, Catherine.
I'm writing them
She's
down.
writing them down.
She's rewriting the song right now. But I suppose the roar from the crowd at that first show at Shiloh Temple really should have let us, like, we should have taken insight from that to let us know that it was going to be the songs that Catherine wrote and her voice and the power of that were going to end up leading to impacting so many people's lives.
Yeah, that was a good story.
Good job, Quaff.
Thank you. I remember writing that one, and I can't really say that I wrote it. Like, we used to have a piano right outside the kitchen. And my guess is a lot of people were gone that day because I don't like writing things in front of people, which is what we do every Saturday from 9 to 11. And I get such a headache by the end of it, just like, people are going to like it. And I don't remember, like, being able to think of words like that. Like, I don't even think I wrote much stuff, poetry or stories or anything. And I just started crying and started writing down words. So I know it was a God thing. Like, that wasn't a me writing stuff. Because, I mean, now I can look back and think, I could write lyrics like that. But back then, that wasn't a talent that I had.
After, how long was Waiting out before we recorded our second/third album? Depending on who you're asking.
Well,
year.
A
yeah.
year?
2 years.
2 years. Well, I mean, of course, I was part of the band, but I was really only in the mindset of I'm the drummer, so I don't remember much of actually writing anything. What was the first song for that got us going on that one, and why did we decide to start doing that one?
Well, what I remember, uh, uh, at least as far as the like group coming together contribution part of it went, was we were in Switzerland, um, playing over there, and that's a whole story for a completely other time because it's a long story. But we were there with a guy named David Hoffman, and David Hoffman was into a lot of different music than what we were into, and kept showing me like punk bands and stuff like that, and like alt rock bands and things. And as we were sitting in an apartment in Switzerland, hanging out, I remember coming up with just the little intro riff for the song "The Eve of War," which became the title track of the second album. And after that, we came home and started like writing stuff all together. And I remember that song. I don't know if it was the first one that we finished, but I do remember that song was the one where I think I showed you guys like just a couple of the basic riffs, and then we did like one playthrough and came up with most of the stuff in the song just like improvising one playthrough. I think we almost completely finished it in one go. That was the first one that I really remember from that.
That song, the lyrics that I remember so well from it that I made me love that song right away was "I'm surrounded by a family of warriors, broad as shields and sharp as swords." And that just, to me, it epitomized what I think of you guys as a team who go out and pray for people and fight their battles for them and fight together as a team.
I definitely think lyrically, I didn't write a thing for this one. So I don't even know why I should be saying this, but I think lyrically we started to get a lot better because I started really listening to the lyrics, and one of the songs off of Evil War, I hope this was on this one, right? Backward?
I'm waiting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Even
okay.
I know
Never
that.
mind. Wow. Oh, this is embarrassing.
boy.
Our writing is really
Stop.
good.
Evil War. What are you saying, Drew? More Evil War?
Sean has somehow more successfully blocked the memories of our first album from his mind than I have from mine. How'd you do that? Teach me.
It's still a good album.
Heads up for anybody who continues to listen to our podcast in the future. Drew does not like waiting. You'll get a lot of sense of that.
I
So
would like
listen to it,
offer
tell him that he's wrong.
brief explanation as to why Cross did such good work with material that we gave him, but the way that we recorded that album was through a digital guitar processor from the early 2000s, a Digitech GNX4. The guitars we recorded from that into a computer in GarageBand. The keyboard, we couldn't figure out how to plug the keyboard directly into the computer, but we did know how to plug the keyboard into the GNX4 into the computer. So the keyboard was 2 levels of processor. And then the drums, we had an electronic set, and we didn't know how to hook that up to the GNX4 or the computer, but we could hook it up to the keyboard to the GNX4 to the computer. By that time, everything was so squashed down and compressed that the drums sound inside out. So, and then we also didn't know how to run a click track. So we had Sean and PJ recording the drum parts, and one person standing outside, outside of the drums, to the side with a metronome in their hand, listening to the metronome, and the drummer had headphones on so they couldn't hear the metronome, and so they were making unbroken eye contact with the person with the metronome. The person with the metronome just stood there for minutes at a time going, and that was our click track. So it's kind of all over the place. Cross did great work with what we gave him, but
this is where this is broken in now, Drew, where we call you the human metronome, because when everyone at church gets out of beat, Drew will start dancing to a beat to get everyone back in sync.
Yeah, it's trauma from recording that album.
That's a lot of That's ingenuity right there.
I think that truly speaks how creative we were. We're great problem solvers. And I mean, as we progressed, our recording process became more mainstream and became a lot more professional, more efficient. We actually went to a studio with real drums for the Eve of War, which was so exciting. I remember, and I don't know why this worked. I could play to a click track and record the song successfully without a shirt on. But when I had a shirt on, I just couldn't. I don't know why. Maybe my tag was distracting.
Maybe it's because your whole life you
like
were
little extra
always...
milligrams of weight from the shirt slowing your arm down. That's what it is.
I was very small back then, so that would make sense.
Well, you wore a lot of tank tops, so I don't know what that would have to do with slowing down your arms.
My shoulders. I also used to have very bad technique for playing drums. So to any future students, we use our wrists all the time.
I think that was Steve Jennings that taught you that. Or was that Steve teaching PJ who taught you?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, PJ. So PJ, being the OG drummer of Breakthrough, used to take lessons from an amazing, phenomenal jazz drummer in Northfield by the name of Steve Jennings. And he had lessons once a week. And then he would come home, and after he processed what he learned, he would then sit me down, usually having to pull me over as I was saying I didn't want to do it. He would then teach me what he learned. And then at some point in time, I think PJ was just like, go for it, Sean. See what happens. And then kind of got us to where we are today. So thank you, Steve, for teaching PJ, and thank you, PJ, for teaching me.
That is an excellent story of the success of the game Telephone.
Yeah, that's kind of, now that I'm looking back, that is kind of how we did all things, isn't it? Plugging into a GNX4, keyboard into the GNX4, drums into the keyboard into the GNX4, guys standing with the metronome going like this. PJ learns drums. Sean learns drums from PJ, who learns drums. And then Sean just never taught anybody else how to play drums.
He's going to teach me soon. I asked him.
That's the first breakdown of the system, Sean. What in the world? You should have taught me drums.
My bad. I was too scared after learning from such great teachers. I didn't think I could stand up to the examples that they
I thought you were having a drum clinic here coming up.
Yeah, about that. Yes. So maybe to quick give context to that, I wasn't planning on talking about that in this episode. But I
You have to
suppose
switch
timing
to your
works.
announcer voice.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to let you know that Sean Medin will be hosting Rhythm and Chops Drum Clinic at Pure Rock Studios in Rochester, Minnesota, March 12th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. If you're a Pure Rock student, you get in for free, but if you're a non-PRS student, it'll cost you $10. I look forward to seeing you there. I have amazing giveaways, cymbals, socks, shirts, and drum keys. I look forward to having you there. We have 4 amazing clinicians that are going to teach you everything from how to play on different kit setups to how to apply a rudiment to your kit. Come join us on Saturday, March 12th. Just
so
fell
close.
apart there. At Pure Rock Studios. See you there.
That was entertaining. I like it.
Yeah, maybe should I start every podcast like that now?
No.
We might need to switch hosts over to Deborah.
Hey, so going back to the early days of Breakthrough, which is kind of what we were talking about, right?
We like to rabbit trail.
I know. You're really good at it, too.
Thanks, Mom.
You're welcome. PJ and Drew sort of equally played bass and guitar, didn't they? Because didn't one of your Sunshine Festival contests, didn't you get downgraded for having your bassist and your guitarist switch instruments partway through the set?
Yes.
Oh, we got docked points for lots of silly things than that.
But I don't know if we really want to go into depth into what those were.
Well, it's a defunct organization now, so there's nothing wrong with it. But they told us that we needed real guitar amps. We were using a hot rod and Fender DeVille, which is a pretty real guitar amp. I've touched it. I know it's real. We got docked points for swapping between guitar and bass. We got docked points for having guitar solos. We got docked points for not having guitar solos. We got docked points for songs being too long, docked for them being too short, and usually all within the same show. So that was
You got docked points for
doing
playing
songs, different
instruments.
genres. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
don't
just
forget
because they all wanted to hear Catherine sing. I can remember at one of those competitions, I was carrying some gear back beyond the place where they serve drinks. And all of a sudden I heard them go, "That girl up there, I heard she's just 14. Can you believe it?" And,
She sounds like a 12-year-old.
wait, didn't that guy end up becoming Catherine's husband?
Yeah, I wasn't a judge. He was just a random 17-year-old tall guy in the audience. Shout out to Tyler
with that
Lexwell.
guy that became her husband, we got a phone call when we were over in Switzerland, and it was another mom from the church.
This is
that
another
said,
podcast. Oh, yeah. Keep that guy away from that girl.
She said, "There is a guy following your daughter," and I just thought that you
That's like,
you
that's
would
not
want to
news.
know.
Lots of guys following my daughter. Tell me more about Deborah. Wrong daughter.
She was over with us.
And guess who's the only single one?
It's because all of them beat the crap out of each other to try and get your attention. Now no one's
we
left.
need a podcast about the Tyler origin story and the Deborah single story. Separate podcast.
That'll be like
Move on.
episode 17 maybe. But one fun thing I remember from earlier days is when we were, of course, learning how to perform live. Was we were like, we can really just try anything. We have no idea what's going to work, what's not going to work. Catherine, Drew, do a secret handshake in the middle of the song.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I still remember that whole thing. You want to do it right now, Drew?
I think I could if you were physically here. I think the muscle memory is there, but the brain memory is not there.
All right. Well, we'll get a video next time we're together.
Yeah, there we go.
Did we get dock points for that one, or did we actually get points for
No,
that?
they thought it was cool. Everybody thought it was cool.
Yeah, we were the coolest kids. We won that competition that year, I think.
It's all because of the handshakes.
We did not win that competition.
No, just Drew and Catherine won.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're right. On
Yeah,
their
they gave
own.
us a record deal just for handshakes.
When you listen to it like without the video, it's really lame.
Just
Just the audio
Clap,
of that
clap,
album.
clap, clap.
I've been told I touched the
there's
table.
some like
too much.
heavy breathing in the background too, like
I think for this, I'm going to switch to footage of Catherine laughing. There are a lot of great memories now. Like taking the time to think back to breakthrough 10 plus years ago.
I think we told this story last time, but I still can't get over getting a call in the middle of the night from PJ or you saying, "Dad, we're on the side of the freeway and our back tire just passed us up."
Yeah.
Yeah,
not
so
just the back tire, the whole wheel. The whole
So-
wheel.
we're coming close here to the end of episode 3, but I do think this is a good story to close out on, because it nearly closed out the tour. Just
Nearly
when the
closed
tour
out.
was starting. So after Mom, I think you were still our manager at the time.
Sorry.
No, but that wasn't the reason the tire flew off. Mom had gotten us connected with a pretty cool organization called the Extreme Tour, and their mission was to take amazing music and concerts to small towns and cities around the U.S. and I believe even in Europe that couldn't afford to bring in major concerts and shows, if I remember this correctly. And they had contacted us because they heard about us through Sonic Bids. And they invited us down to something they call the Objective down in Nashville. And there they talked to all the bands that they're looking at bringing into the tour for that year. And to meet them, have them play a showcase. And then after that kind of sets you up to which part of the tour you're going to be. You're going to be Midwest, you're going to be East Coast, West Coast, you're going to be over in Europe. And so we got into the Midwest. Was this our first year or second year? We did?
Second year, because I was on it.
Second year.
Okay. So second year, so we had been a part of this extreme tour for the year before, and we really enjoyed it. So we came back, and we were just starting the tour, and the first show was going to be
In Kansas.
Was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
It's my birthday.
Yep.
Oh, on Catherine's birthday. It was going to be in Kansas, and we were in.
Somewhere on the way to Kansas.
Yeah, some
You
state
were
that
in
starts with an
Illinois.
A. No, we were in Mississippi.
Missouri.
Well, it was
Close.
midnight. We couldn't see where we were.
No,
anyway.
no, it was
No,
daylight.
it was in the
exactly-
middle
It
of
was
the day.
definitely daylight.
Day, but-
We were in Missouri. On our way down, I was following the speed limit. I think it was 75 miles an hour, and we had just from the last stop switched out drivers from PJ to me, and I was going to take us the rest of the way. So I'm driving, having a great time. I think Druid had the turn to pick the CD in our 1997 Ford F350, hauling our music trailer. We're having a great time. I think jamming to For Today. And all of a sudden we hear and the back part of the trunk dropped. And I was like, that's what's going on? And I think PJ was like, stop. So I quick pulled over, and I felt there was some resistance, but I pulled over to just off to the shoulder on a bridge, and it came to a stop. And all of a sudden, our back
Right.
right tire came flying past us on the left side of the car, staying in its lane.
An important detail, like I said, is not that it was the tire; it's the whole wheel.
Yes, the whole
The
entire
wheel
rim
thing.
and everything.
went flying past us. Thankfully, didn't hit anyone, but kept rolling, veered off into the ditch, and did one of those just funny, started like slowly twirling a little bit faster, and then just kaplop. And PJ's head snuck up to the front seat and goes, "Well, that's not supposed to happen." And I think we sat there for like 5 minutes because none of us knew what to do or how to process what in the world just happened, because the spare tire we had was rusted to the bottom of the truck because it hadn't been taken out of the truck since the truck had been made on the Ford floor. Don't worry, Dad's in this camera shot.
Clearly, Dad loves this story because he is crying.
The only story Dad loves more is the one about the sheep and the skunk.
No, we're
which
not
we'll
going
cover
there.
in a different one.
Nope.
But after PJ took charge because he's the oldest, he's like, "I'll call Dad." So he did, and Dad, being states and hours away, answered the phone
States.
to,
We were in Switzerland.
and
Yeah.
by states
Yeah,
and
a few
I meant
Ocean.
across America, and then you get across the ocean, and then the states
A
and
few more
cantons of the other countries. And goes, "Dad, because you can totally help us."
What do we do?
The back tire came flying off the truck. He goes, "But don't worry, the rest of the truck's intact." So it's a trailer. But what do we do? And Dad is like, "Go get the spare," and we told him we can't. And so I think he said, just
The reason that the tire had fallen off is someone had put new tires on it.
we won't
and
say
it
who.
get tight.
A mechanic, not any of us. None of us.
I think we had you guys call the mechanic.
Professional.
You're right. We called the place that had switched the tires right before to make sure we had brand new tires and everything was
Safe.
in alignment and safe. Good job.
And I think we induced them, maybe cited
No.
some
They were very
statutes or
good.
Yeah,
something.
They were
they
very good.
took care of us in the end. They paid for the new tire, the wheel, and
The new
repair.
brake that you
And the
wore
new,
in
the
the
new,
app.
because
And they bought us dinner.
I destroyed the disc on.
The
I
bottom,
was the
the
drum brake
bottom
that you
of
wore
where
to the
that
app.
wheel used to be mounted was flat. Like it had ground to a completely flat, shiny silver surface. It was kind of amazing to look at. Very hot.
I'm great with cars, by the way. But they took care of us. We went to the nearest town. They came. The people came, towed the truck, picked it up on the bed of the truck. Some of us were in the truck,
the
and some of us
coolest
were
thing.
in the truck. And then he was kind enough to then also attach the music trailer, because we were like, we are not leaving this behind. We're already in trouble for ruining the truck, and now we aren't going to lose all this equipment. They were so kind. They took care of us the whole day. We ended up getting to the event a little late by like hours, and
was
got
like
all
6
settled
hours
in.
late.
And so the rest of the tour, no issues with the truck. I accidentally lost 2 of our guitars. I'm super responsible. I want to let you all know that.
We
Just
found
so
them. We found them.
I've changed, but the truck worked wonderfully the rest of the trip. The only weird thing was the wonky looking wheel that we had that didn't match the rest of the setup. But we're like, hey, we're from the country in Minnesota. And everyone's like, oh, that makes sense. But I think that's a great story to end on for the 3rd episode. So thank you, everyone, for taking the time to get together with me and talk more about just kind of the fun family memories of Breakthrough in our beginning. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for having the vision for the family band. I can tell you don't meet a lot of parents that are like, I want my kids to be a band, because that's where money is made and that's where change happens. Not a whole lot of money has been made, but a lot of changes happen, and hallelujah for the lives that have been saved.
Change tires.
And a lot of tires have been changed as well. Cars have
Not
been
a lot of
repaired.
change has been made.
Yeah.
In
True.
terms of money.
But a lot of change to us and our equipment and our vehicles and people's lives, which is the most important part. But a lot of funny things have happened, and there are a lot more funny stories to come in the next episode. We're going to go more in depth, bring you more up to date in the stories from that extreme tour on to where we are today, and you'll get to hear about some pretty cool things in our time in Switzerland, as well as get to learn more about us, the silliness of being siblings, and the odd things you learn about us through that. But we want to welcome you all into our family as well as to the band, because one of the most important parts of one's life is their family, and knowing that you are loved, cared for, and supported. And so we do care about you, our listeners. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, as well as follow us on Instagram. You'll see all the latest updates of podcasts, and I'm thinking about just starting to take funny pictures of the weird things that happen around the house. They'll be watching their
I'll
back.
try to make it look.
Sean brought out the camera. Deborah's really good at making things look, was it, Deborah? Candid?
Oh
Candid.
yeah.
Yeah, so Deborah's going to teach
Watch
us a lot.
this.
Yeah. So candid.
But we look forward to seeing you all next time in 2 weeks for episode 4 for Welcome to the Medins. We'll talk to you soon.